Today we're putting a set of airbags in the ute. She's getting pretty heavy with this tray and canopy setup, so to counteract that, we've got a set of Airbag Man airbags to go in. So I'll go through what's in the kit. Obviously your 2 airbags, some hardware, some line, a few more bits and pieces, and a QR code to search for the instructions. This is the lifted kit, so obviously if your vehicle's raised you want the bigger airbags, and should help raise this up, as this canopy weighs a fair bit now. I will go through what's in the ute at the moment. So there's a set of progressive bump stops up in here with a 500 kilo constant load leaf pack and some B60 Bilstein shocks. I think the shocks are 700mm length, which is one of the longest ones you can get for this vehicle, but obviously with the weight that's here I'm running out of up travel, so I need to make this space here a lot bigger, and the airbag will help me do that. Righto, first step is to lift the car up. I'm using a kangaroo jack or a high lift jack. These are pretty dangerous, so it's best that you put the car in forward drive, chock the wheels, because if that lets go while you're under it, you're going to be in a bit of strife. So the way that these jacks work, there's a locking pin mechanism there, and every time you jack the car up the pin moves. You've got to come up to make sure the pin locks in before you go again. You just want to jack the car high enough that the bump stop isn't touching, so you can get the bump stop out freely. Already you can see how much travel I'm supposed to have in the shock, and should be able to achieve that with the airbag. Now that I've got the car jacked up, the wheels are chocked, that's all safe and ready to go. Gonna move on to checking these out, just make sure that they're all good, and as well as look at that VR QR code and get some instructions up, and we'll put them in. We'll slap her in, eh? So for those who don't know, the whole purpose of a bump stop is to stop this shock from stroking out. Obviously if that's going to stroke out, it's going to damage the seals, you know, it's going to lose oil, it's going to get hot, it's going to blow, and it's not going to support the vehicle and continue to work correctly. So that's just one thing that is why you have your bump stops. You can either have a progressive bump stop like this one, your standard ones are made of metal, sometimes rubber, or you can go the next option and get an airbag. These bump stops or airbags are relatively easy to put in. You just undo your nuts on the bottom of your U-bolts, and obviously that just, once you remove these U-bolts, that just pops out. Now it's going to be the same putting the airbags in. There might be a few more steps because the hardware's a bit different, but otherwise pretty straightforward. So first thing, we're going to undo these U-bolts. We're going to use a big ugga-dugga gun and get them off. So once you've undone your nuts and your U-bolt bracket, you should be able to just pop that out. And you can take the whole lot out. Bit of a souvenir from Cape York. Look how that dust is relentless. So in comparison, you can already see how much smaller that bump stop is compared to the airbag, and the airbags have no air in them yet. So that should lift the vehicle significantly. First step is to have this bracket with the large hole facing in towards the vehicle, and then the U-bolts will go on top of that. Once you put your U-bolts in like that, you can feel free to do up the bottom bracket and nuts. So you want to tighten that to the recommended torque rates, which is 16 or 17 ugga-duggas. No, but in all seriousness, that has to be torqued to spec. So this is pretty well what the assembled airbag looks like. There's a crash plate bracket, and then an elbow for your airline on the bottom. This bracket with the hooks is going to hook onto that, and then we're going to mount 2 bolts on the inside, and that'll secure the airbag. So once you've got that part in, you can run it through this on this locating plate here. It goes through and tighten, then your airline runs through. You can run your airline however you will. I've just run it through the back of the tray, and I've just test fitted it and located it, and that's about 25 psi in there. And as you can see, the leafs have a lot more of a bow to them, so, and that shock has a lot more travel. It'll be a much better ride. That's the ride height under its own steam. It was about here before, so gained a lot more up travel to carry the rest of the load. And I've just ran the fitting through the back of the tray here like that. You can pump your air into it, pump it up with the compressor. Not a bad little job, bit fiddly, but came out pretty good. Okay, here's the finished product. 2 airbags in. I just ran the air lines over the top of the brake lines are and out the back of the car. There she is. 2 Airbag Man airbags. Once again, their fittings goes out the back of the ute. Beautiful. Righto, it's been a couple of days since these bags have been in, and I tell you what, it is so much better. It can handle all that weight heaps better, and it is just so much more comfier on the road. They're only about 24 pound at the moment, so I'll pump it up a little bit more, maybe to 30 when that's fully loaded. But otherwise, that is so much better, and definitely a mod that I would recommend doing. Today being a new day, we're going to do some maintenance to the vehicle. A few goodies that you should probably think about putting in your 4-wheel drive as well. So I'll run through that with you now. We're just doing an oil change. Make sure you do get your right oil filter if you're going to do it yourself. This is an oil stabilizer, and it does exactly what it says. It cleans the motor and all the rest of the stuff. And I could not recommend this more. It's been really good, especially if you're going to go into hotter climates. This is really going to protect your engine. You just swap that out for a litre of engine oil, and that replaces it and keeps your engine nice and clean. If you are going to get oil yourself, make sure it is DPF compatible for your vehicle, and make sure it is all the right viscosity. I've also got some Bendix brake pads that are going in, and some new rotors, which is going to be good. These ones are just getting a little bit warped, so that's what we're doing today. Let's rip in. As always, if you're going to be working on your vehicle, make sure you put it in 4-wheel drive. If you're taking wheels off, you don't want your vehicle to be rolling around, especially with the wheel off. These jacks aren't so safe, so you do need to take a few precautions when obviously lifting your vehicle off the ground. So number 1, put it in 4-wheel drive and make sure you chock the wheels. Now that you've got it in 4-wheel drive, make sure that you're going to leave it in gear with the handbrake up, as well as chock the wheel, because you don't want it rolling. If you want to find out how much oil your vehicle needs, Liquid Moly have a really good oil guide. You can punch in exactly what your vehicle is, and you can find out how much oil you need. So that's going to show you the service refill capacity. It's 7.5 litres for this Hilux. It's going to be different for every vehicle, so make sure you do your research so you're not putting too much or too little oil in your vehicle. The annoying thing about purchasing oil is obviously they're only going to sell you a 1 litre bottle, a 5 litre bottle, or a 10 litre bottle. Fortunate for this being 7.5 litres, I can get a 5 litre, or I can get a 10 litre, do 1 service out of it, still have 2.5 left over, and use my 5. I am replacing a litre of oil with this oil stabilizer though, so even though bit of food for thought, you only get them in a 10, a 5 or a 1. It's definitely a good idea to have your engine oil hot. It's going to make it a lot easier for all that oil to come out. Just be mindful that that engine oil is going to be hot when you drop it, so be careful of your hands and your eyes and all the rest of it. So once you get your oil filter out and discarded of, and all that's full, you can put your new filter in. Make sure you do oil that O-ring that's on there. You can pre-oil them, put oil in the filter, but we're just going to let it fill it up by itself. You can just hand tighten these filters, you don't need to go crazy on them. They will expand and tighten anyway. So here's the result of that. Used oil filter, used oil. Obviously, yeah, she's pretty black. That hasn't even been, not even 10,000 Ks, it was only 6,000, but when you're out on the road and you're trying to do, you know, trying to keep the longevity of your vehicle, obviously service it, you know, 5 to 10,000 Ks if you can. Make sure you're using quality products as well, don't skimp out on using good products for your vehicle. It's just going to help the longevity of it. Make sure you can keep touring for as long as you can. So I'm going to add my litre of this Morris oil in first. This is just good for, you know, cleaning out all the crap and stuff in your motor that builds up over time, so definitely recommend using this. It's like super thick, it's almost like glue, but definitely recommend putting some in your vehicle, especially when you go into those hotter climates. Just save that motor. I'll just go through what it says on here, like you know, no dry starts, you know, everything's always lubricated, you know, improved oil pressure, viscosity, and it's all stabilised. Extends the life of regular oil in all applications, slows oil consumption, smoother and cooler operations, and easier cold starting up to minus 40 degrees. Stops blow by and all the rest of the stuff, and yeah, it's good stuff. And now I'm just going to fill up the remainder of the oil capacity, which is 7.5 litres, so I'll put 6.5 litres of my new fresh engine oil. This is 5W30 DPF compatible Penrite oil. If you can help it, get quality stuff, go and get some liquid moly if you can. They didn't have liquid moly here, so next best thing, obviously this fully synthetic 5W30. Righto, that's it for the oil change. Like I said, 6.5 litres of oil, a litre of the Morris stabiliser, and she should be good to go for, you know, another 5 or 10,000 Ks. So that's that part done. Let's get on to the brakes. One thing I like to use is a clear container just for this, so you can, you know, you can suss it out whether there's any metal or nothing in there. Obviously, just have visual inspection of whether there's metal or not, and reuse your old bottles and dispose of that oil correctly. Righto, starting on the brakes. Jack the car up, make sure it's in four-wheel drive, and throw your wheel underneath the car. You do not want to be stuck under there if that jack gives way. First up to change these, you need to remove these 2 bolts, 1 bolt, 2 bolt at the back of the caliper. Make sure you have something to put this on so you don't stretch these lines. You just simply pop the disc off, pull it away, and then put the new one on. Just put a pair of gloves on, only because we changed the oil. You don't want oily prints and stuff on your brakes. I know with motorbike brakes, these pads are organic material, so they don't like fingerprints anyway, or oily surfaces. Now I'm going to crack this nipple and let a bit of fluid out. It's just so I can put these pistons back and put these new pads in. This is my little contraption with a clear bit of hose in the top of a bottle. Make sure that's pretty airtight. You can pry these pistons, but be very careful because they can be fragile. So, you know, crack the nipple, let a little bit run out. You can maneuver a little bit to get your pads in, but just keep in mind, be careful of these. So, once you've got your brakes all bled up, that's her done. New pads, new rotors. Be good for a little while. There's a service done. And also we did the airbags in the back, so she's good to rock and roll. We're going into Arnhem Land next, so once we leave here, she should be right to go.